This little guy is a saltwater glass shrimp. He was sold to me by a local fish store just as a feeder shrimp, and I've got about 8 of them that's been living in the sump of a reef tank just fine for a while now. And after a bit, feeding regularly, they developed some eggs, and they ended up spawning. I don't have a proper ID for them, but you can see they were mostly clear when I got them, and they've developed these kind of like darker stripes and patterns on the back. I think in response to the environment, it seems that way. Um, but they've been quite a bit of fun, and after they spawned, I collected the larvae and accidentally got them to settle on the first attempt, so this is a log of that. This is what the larvae looks like, probably about an hour after spawn. They're pretty strongly phototactic, so that is, they go towards the light, they swim directly towards the light when presented with it, so they're not too hard to collect, and they're very strong swimmers. They also seem to be pretty durable, so I wasn't super careful when I collected them, and very few got injured. You can see they're mostly clear with a little bit of kind of yellow and red, but by eye, when you just look at them, they look like two kind of whitish splotches, like a snowman almost, in a little tiny clear shrimp. This larva is probably about a week old. I didn't do a good job recording the timeline of how long these guys were larvae for, because it was kind of unexpected that anything happened at all. So this is probably about halfway through the process. They take approximately 2 weeks to settle. Maybe it's closer to 10 days. I honestly don't remember. I had two runs lining up over each other, and that didn't help either. This one, however, is almost settled. In fact, this is the same day. There had been in previous days some other larvae that had already settled, and I've got a little bit coming up of one that is settled from just minutes later under the same microscope. And you can see they're still pretty strongly swimming towards the light, but they have much more of that regular shrimp shape, and the eye stalks are not super long, but are much thicker. They're kind of already set up to go. And this is what they act like once they actually settle. So this is the same night, a different larva from the same batch, and no longer swimming directly towards the light, no longer swimming backwards, running around on his legs going forwards. Obvious difference before, well, not before, between the stages before they settle and the stages after. So this is the same guy, just zoomed in a little bit more. They're really difficult to get on camera because they don't want to stop moving when they're in zooming mode. And they have kind of two modes, as I'll see later. Once I thought they had all settled, which is a day or two after the last one, I put them in this little tank, which is basically a partition in the main tank where their parents were raised that just keeps them out of the power heads, keeps them out of the mouths of other things. And gave them this little, I think it's 8 millimeters across for those hexagons. You can't see them super easily in that view, so I've been taking mostly view directly through the glass. For size reference, that is a baby limpet there. The shrimp are probably between 6 and 8 millimeters long, and the little vertical thing on the left is standard silicone airline tubing. I use it as a gasket for the little container that they're in. This is from the next day. Moved it over to the other side of the container and started using a flashlight to see them. So this is basically what they look like straight after settling, and you can see they're still pretty clear. They do develop a little color over time. This is again the next day after that, and I'm feeding them. That's finds from some frozen food that I've been feeding them. They'll eat pretty much anything. They seem to prefer the frozen to pellets of really any sort, but if you drop some pellets in there, they will be gone by the next day. And as you can see, the little tiny particles, not so interesting to them. The bigger stuff is what they're interested in, and they will gladly grab onto something that's larger than them, or that is so large it pulls them down and they can't stay afloat. They're greedy little shrimps. But for as greedy as they also don't really fight with each other very much. You give them enough food, and they leave each other alone, even in very close proximity. Something I like about them and their parents is that they seem to have really, I don't know, good personalities to get along with things. This is now 3 days later, same spot in the tank. I think I didn't move the camera at all from the last time. They're a little bigger. You can definitely see the dark striping on the sides just a little bit now. And you can see that they have a little bit of reaction to light. They're not attracted to it in the same way as they were as larvae, but they definitely have some reaction. This is the same day, just later at night. You get a little bit different lighting, see the reflections in their eyes a little bit. And when they're startled by by bright lights. That's a bloodworm in the back. This is the day after that. This is more frozen food, and they just kind of feast on it. When everyone gets a chunk, they don't chase each other around really at all, and they're relaxed. They're model citizens in a lot of ways. The next day again, I think it's been apparent for a little while, and even from the time they settled, but there's a pretty big difference in size between the smallest ones and the biggest ones. You can see one of the larger ones kind of over on the left, where most of the others are a bit smaller than that. And it doesn't seem to matter. I've actually had a few from the first batch, the first two that I caught and kind of accidentally raised, that have been living with their parents, and they don't really fight or compete with each other much. This is, again, the next day. That's the same little limpet that was in the first couple of days one on the wall. I don't think it's grown nearly as fast as they have. Another day in the life of the shrimps. The ground is quaking a little bit because of a power head that's on in the tank underneath it, but they don't seem to mind. They never seem to mind, really. And this is about as far as the video goes. I've got one more day worth of footage, but they look about the same because it's from the next day. I sold a few of these little tiny ones because people were curious at a club meeting, and I'll be keeping the rest and raising them up to have a more properly sized colony. But while they're not particularly fancy looking shrimp, they seem to get along with stuff. They haven't bothered the couple of corals that I've put them with. They'll eat almost anything. They're not a problem in a group. There's times a day like this when they just kind of chill out and sit there, and there's times of days where they all swim around continuously, and it's kind of hilarious to watch. They're also like a little inquisitive. They'll move towards light when they give a chance in a dark space. So if you're looking for something relatively easy to breed, these are a good choice, and I think they're probably pretty good tank mates as long as you have nothing that's going to eat them.